I think One Piece will be okay. I haven't seen anything for Yu Yu Hakusho, man.
I think the Yu Yu Hakusho is being done in Japan, which usually means it's going to be shit. Like, because their live action stuff is always garbage. So at least with the Netflix One Piece, it's going to be something different and like high budget and not garbage.
I
Like,
feel like it's going to be even hotter garbage, but just like glitzy garbage, like shiny garbage, something a crow would pick up.
but it's like, for as much as I hype up anything animation that comes out of Japan and shit on anything cartoon related in America, it's the opposite with live action. Everything live action in Japan is absolute dog shit.
I have
Except,
heard...
wait,
Okay.
do you remember that show? What was it? Most Extreme Elimination?
What the hell is that?
It was like the game show that was like dubbed over. It was like a Japanese game show.
Sasuke? What the hell is it called? Shit. In Japanese, it's called Sasuke. It's the one where they have the 3 levels and they have to do an obstacle course.
Yes.
That's not anime though. It's
no.
plot driven.
That's the only live action thing. That
Iron Chef. They have a lot. A lot of dumb stuff is quite good.
No,
the old Godzilla movies are a little bit terrible, but campy in a good way.
So here's the thing: if it's live action reality, it's good. But if it's scripted, it's garbage.
Do you remember? Do you remember a YouTube channel we used to watch when we were teenagers called Hard Gay?
Yes, I do remember Hard
Gay.
Yeah.
It's like this middle-aged Japanese man in like a tight black jumpsuit, I believe. We're just running around doing pranks. Dude, I'm telling you, live action.
He had like a song about himself. It was
God.
Hard to gay since I was a boy. It was so bizarre.
Oh, God. And now I need to watch some Hard Gay after this podcast.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Rob, you know what? I had a really good cold open, but we'll just save it for later. But here we are, 10 minutes in, 5 minutes in, who the fuck knows? Welcome to S-Class, the highest tier in podcasting. Joined with me as always is the king of neats, the mangaka who has never left his room. It is Robert.
And joined by me is the artist with no ability to draw, Justin.
Thank you.
You know, it really is, with Bakuman, a great comparison of us, except we're not
talented.
Or talented.
We are the opposite. They worked really hard and had no social lives for 10 years. We also have no social lives for 10 years. We just didn't accomplish anything. We got none of the perks, none of the benefits, and still had all the terrible aspects of their life. At least you got married. You're sort of living the Akagi dream. Yeah, but Akagi, what the fuck his name? Unlike him, I'm a terrible writer. You wrote a book. That's something. That's true, but I didn't write a manga. The fuck did I do? Oh, God. You drew the cover. That's true. Oh, my God. That's our first collaboration. Oh, my God. You're right. Rob, you want to plug in your fantasy football book? I mean, I wasn't expecting to do this right now, but... No, I'm not going to plug my book. Yeah, you know what? Why not? Nobody cares about your fantasy team. It is a fantasy football book with art by Justin. For those 3% or less people who do fantasy football and like anime, there's no way there's any carryover right now between fans potentially of my book and fans of Bakuman listening to this podcast. It's going to be it's a very tight Venn diagram. I thought we were going to promote this during Thanksgiving, but I guess we're doing it now. We'll do it again then. We'll do it every Thanksgiving, but yeah, why not? Our first plug, January 13th. Oh my God. So if you guys haven't figured it out by now, Rob and I are going to be talking about a manga that we both love but have given zero love to over the past, I don't know, year or so. Definitely the last 2 months we have not given it enough love. And that is Bakuman. And the story of Bakuman is that a young artist and a young writer come together to create manga in Shonen Jump. Sounds simple, but it is also one of the very worst romance plots in the history of media. That is like, I have like a whole list of things I want to talk about. That is one of the hot cons of the things I need to talk about this manga. Am I right though? It is quite possibly the worst romance plot in anything ever in the history of human society. And these two, this is the mangaka duo who created Death Note and Platinum End and now Shoha Shoten. But this was their second endeavor, which was Bakuman. And they cannot write romance for fucking shit. They've been writing manga. I think the artist for this series has been writing manga for over 30 years because I think he's like 50 something years old. And he's considered like a veteran in the industry. I don't know how much he contributes to the actual writing of the romance, but can't fucking do shit for it. Oh my God.
I normally would have attributed it like this had to have been all the writer, but then Shoha Shoten is not the same writer. It's just the same artist.
It's the
exact same terrible romance plot.
You know what? The author of Shoha Shoten must have been like, man, I really need help to like find this romantic motivation. He's like, boy, do I got an idea for you, man.
How about this? They don't get together for 10 years for no reason whatsoever.
And they fell in love when they were like 4 because that's how romance works. Brilliant. I don't know if it's a cultural difference, but it's bizarre. And I kind of love...
even within Bakuman, the writer gets married and has a normal like relationship that progresses as a normal human being would.
Let's reel it back a little bit.
Yes.
Because we have spent a good 5 minutes just shitting on this manga that we have already shat on or give no attention to the last couple of months. Why don't we talk about some of the good things? So I read
love
this
Bakuman.
Yeah. So I read this manga like 3-4 years ago. When I read it, I was not sleeping. Like every night I'd be up till 4 a.m. and then I'd have to commute to work the next day and I'd be like dead. And my boss would be like, you okay, Justin? I was like, oh yeah, just like work's been really crazy. Even though he was the one giving me the work, so he knows it wasn't that crazy. I think I knew that you would like this, so I passed it off to you last year. So why don't you tell me about expectations walking in and what your thoughts on it? Because we literally haven't talked about it.
So what I thought it was going to be was kind of more of just an informational manga, like maybe not a historical manga, but really something that just kind of flat out shows you how things get, going in Shonen Jump, like how a manga gets created, the process. And that is what it is. But there's so much more to it than that. There's so much character and so much like heart to it. And the art is fantastic. I love this artist. The artist is Oba or Obata?
Obata.
Yeah. There's something so crisp about his art. It's not cute. It's not even like beautiful or well done.
It's pretty.
It's just got this like, yeah, it's got this crispness, this kind of, I don't even want to say harshness, but it really feels like he put a lot of time into drawing it.
I have tried to emulate his drawing style before, and I can emulate quite a few artists like One Piece and Naruto. Those are not that hard. This one is very hard. Like the lines have to be very precise, and the girls are like, they're not like hot, but they're very beautiful. They're almost doll-like in a way.
Right.
And the main characters, like the way they draw hair, like very precise lines that if you draw it slightly wrong, like you can tell that's not right. So you loved it. It surpassed expectations, met expectations?
Oh no, it absolutely surpassed expectations.
Okay.
I think I liked it more than Death Note.
Oh, without a doubt. This is my favorite series out of the 4 so far. I don't know if Shoha Shoten's going to surpass this. I want to talk about a couple of things. The first thing is, besides, throw away the story for just a second, and the most awesome part about this is that it's so meta and it gives you this inside look that a normal person would never get a chance to see about the Japanese manga industry. Because as a kid, you're just sort of like, Japanese man sits in his room and draws comics all day and he's living the dream. But then you kind of see the business side and like the really harsh reality of what it's like. It's very cutthroat, and the way they submit things and the editorial staff. And it's just, you see all the inner workings and it's awesome.
And it's deadly. I mean, they end up in the hospital. The main character's uncle dies, and that's kind of what sets off the plot, or that's what is inspiring him and driving him. It's that harsh reality that this isn't fun. You're creating something that is fun and lighthearted, but the process to make it is anything but.
Yeah, when your favorite mangaka goes off on sick leave, like they're like, oh, like this person needs a break, like you start to understand why that's happening, because these people are literally sleeping like 3 hours a day sometimes, and they have assistants. Like it's a really difficult job. It goes without saying.
I mean, there's no break. These are weekly series.
The other thing that I was thinking about is it kind of like made me sad because the the author does not necessarily have a love of the thing that they're creating. Maybe less than 30% of the time in this series does the author feel really passionate about what they're creating instead of them just trying to rise the ranks and try to be number one. It's more like means to an end rather than someone feeling really passionate. Like maybe the guy who writes Road Racer Geary, I think his name's like Fukuda or something. That guy's really passionate. Yeah. But like the main duo, they're just sort of like creating formulas for how to get to number one. And it doesn't really feel like they love any of their series. They're just trying to beat the other guys. You know what I'm saying?
Right. They're just trying to like piece together what can be the most successful and sustainable while staying true to their style a bit. But it's not like they actually care that much about what they're creating as much as they do how it, how the fans like it.
Yeah, all they care about is success.
Ultimately, they just want to get an anime.
Yeah, because the plot is main guy fell in love with main girl like when they were 5 without ever talking to each other. They just saw each other from across like a swimming pool or something, if I remember correctly. And then 10 years later, he confesses his love. She's like, oh yeah, I've loved you this whole time too. But we're gonna not talk to each other for 10 years or until you create a manga that is so good it gets an anime. And when that happens, I will become the voice actress of that anime. Is that how you and your wife got married, Rob?
Yeah, except I didn't do anything successful.
Just kind of fell into your lap, huh?
I never got the anime adaptation of my book. It's coming.
It's coming.
There will be an anime adaptation at some point, but
I can't wait for that day.
I mean, it is by far the stupidest romance plot of all time. I mean, he at some point he ends up in the hospital, and that is the first time she finally is like, maybe I should check on this guy.
and then she sits next to him and she's like, oh my God, we finally get to see each other after like, I don't know, a couple of years. And she's like, let me help you draw manga. I'm going to hold your hand while you draw manga. And I was like, this is just horse shit. It's so stupid, but I love it still.
And then I'm just like, I need more Otter number 11. I need to get away from this terrible romance subplot and get to the real manga of this manga.
I have a whole list of horrible romance subplots. If you want me to skip over them, that's totally fine.
Within this series?
Yeah, I have 3 of them, sorry. So
yeah, give me them.
Okay, so you have Mashiro and Azuki, who's your main characters. That one's terrible. The next one is Hiromaru and his love interest that you find out later in the end. I will not spoil it. They become T-friends, quote unquote, so they're not even dating. They never hold hands, no kissing, no establishment that they're even dating or in a relationship. And then they get married.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
And she's like, yeah, cool.
Sounds good to me.
Totally fine. And then the third one, which is like a smaller one, but there's another girl called Iwase who's like kind of like socially awkward but really beautiful, and she loves the other main character, the writer character, because he gets good grades. They shake hands one day because they're like, oh, we're good competitors in terms of like academics, and she thinks that means they're in a relationship.
Right. So she thought that was a declaration of love.
So she went to his apartment and just sat there and watched him write manga, and he's like, what the fuck is this girl doing here? I wonder about their own relationships, Are they married?
Is that like, what are they drawing on? This can't be personal experience.
If it is
this what they think?
It's hilarious.
Relationships are like?
Imagine that's exactly what the relationships were. Like, he fell in love with his elementary school sweetheart, and he's like, all relationships
didn't talk for 15 years.
Wait till I become a successful mangaka. And then after Death Note, he got married.
It's not a bad career arc, honestly.
And now every single story he writes will be about this.
Even the ones he doesn't write. That's the thing.
Maybe both of them had relationships like that.
That's why they connected so well.
The only working relationship is between so there's the writer artist duo, the writer called Akagi and his girlfriend Kaya. They become a pair and their relationship's normal. But there's like one thing that always bothered me was the wedding scene. Do you remember this?
Yeah, there's something, I don't know. There's something like, I want to know more about Japanese weddings.
No, Mashiro was just a total asshole. Do you remember it?
Yeah, no.
That's his best friend, and he's just like, you're getting married, but we should be writing manga, guys. Like what a prick.
But like, is that a cultural thing, or I'm not so sure.
I think Mashiro really held back this manga from being like the highest tier possible, because I'm not getting across that I really love this series, but that's because we've just been focusing on the bad parts.
See, I think the thing is, I love Bakuman so much that it's not as fun to talk about why it's great. There's just like so many, because even the bad things aren't bad; they're just funny.
It's like assumed
Like-
it's greatness, so it's easier just to like laugh about the shitty things.
Exactly. It doesn't even. It doesn't like the romance. These terrible romances don't bother me. I think they're hilarious.
I agree.
Like they don't take away from the manga. If anything, like it just adds to its legacy. But they are terrible, and I cannot stress that enough.
Like they're almost the most memorable parts because everything else is so good. Like the entire time it coasts. There's no like bad arc where it's just like, oh man, this is boring.
No.
So these really bad moments kind of like create a downward spike in the curve that you're like, oh shit, I remember that now.
Yeah. Because you're absolutely right. Because you're kind of like when I was reading it, at least like I was flying through it, and not even like speed reading because there's a lot of text in this manga.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I'm reading 10 chapters a day, that's taking up a lot of time. But then when you get to these ridiculous moments, you're like, what? This is what I was like speeding towards.
And now that you mention it, it's a good segue. So I think that this duo is very text heavy because they use a lot of exposition and explanation. Like, and in Death Note, I remember reading it and being like, this is so like a drag. But this one, because the topic is so interesting and it's real, it's really fascinating.
Right, because, for us, we are people that love manga and like to learn about the ins and outs of the industry. And, this is after they did Death Note. So this is after they've been in Shonen Jump. So they're, writing this from their own experiences in Jump.
Yep.
Because, in Bakuman, they are writing for Shonen Jump.
And they're just not some Joe Schmoes, like some middle of the road mangas. Like they made Death Note, which was probably the hottest thing of early mid 2000s. So they know what they're talking about. I have a couple of different topics I want to jump around to. Since we're talking about manga, I wanted to ask you, which of these manga would you actually read? And while I was doing some preparatory research for this, did you know that this is another part of their genius. They created a total of 46 different series within this series.
It's 46?
I think so. That's what it said.
That's impressive. I mean, I'm sure some of them were like just one-off mentions, but like they at least had a synopsis when they mentioned
a cover page, a character, and yeah. So like there's like 10 different mangaka that they've become friends with, and each of them has their own art style and story. So it's amazing because this guy has to adapt and draw 5 or 6 different art styles based on who he's creating a manga for.
That's right too. Because exactly. So you're within your own manga, you have to differentiate these different art styles for the manga within your manga. It really is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, well, this guy, he's really good background artist, but he can't write stories, so he has to draw the most detailed trees and cities when he's drawing for that Nakai, the fat guy, or when he's drawing for Aokiko, she's...
Oh, the degenerate,
degenerate fat guy. Or when he's drawing for Aokiko, he has to draw shoujo manga as a 20-year-old woman, So this guy, his adaptability is like next level. It's insane. Back to the original question, which was, of these manga, which of these would you read?
It's Otter number 11.
tell our audience the synopsis of Otter number 11.
the man is an otter.
There's a otter businessman.
He's a businessman, and he's got the suit, he's got the tie, and he's also got rock hands that he uses to punch people in the face.
Oh my god. I was going to throw Panty Flash Fight into the mix. Panty Flash Fight is a battle tournament manga where beautiful girls fight each other in miniskirts, and if their panties are exposed, then they lose.
Years later, this would become an actual anime.
I'm sure I wonder if it actually does, or if it doesn't exist already.
I'm sure it exists in some capacity. What was the Pokemon knockoff?
That was called Plus Natural.
That was Plus Natural, right? Yeah.
That one seemed interesting, but it didn't get a lot of development.
No, because it was a Pokemon knockoff. Or maybe it was a Yu-Gi-Oh knockoff because it was Shonen Jump, but...
I think it was Pokemon. Like, they referenced it was Pokemon. I think I reread the synopsis. I was like, is that what happened? It's about a boy who's watching TV about psychics, and then all of a sudden he realizes that he can bend spoons, and then he tries to make an egg hatch, and outside of the normal chicken egg comes like this Pokemon creature, and
this was Pokemon.
it creates this whole world of Pokemon.
Yeah.
So that's one that seems somewhat interesting. Do you remember Classroom of Truth? That one was awesome.
Yeah, but the guy was a dirtbag, the author.
Yeah,
that's when things got ridiculous. Actually, with the plot, where he created like an entire, funded an entire farm of people to create the perfect manga. It was just like this soulless corporation to develop manga just to beat the main duo.
It was a manga written by 4chan, essentially. He's like, "Hey guys, I need to create the best manga. Here's a plot. Give me something."
It was like that theory of if you had like a million infinite years and monkeys in a room, that they'd eventually write Shakespeare.
That was actually I wasn't sure if you would like that one, because it's a death game where people are stuck in a classroom, and if you lie, you get killed or you disappear. But it was actually a really well thought out concept. The author of that one reminds me a lot of our friend Kevin.
Yes.
Just
the seriousness and like the drive to defeat people over the most frivolous and stupid things.
I will use my money to defeat you.
You know what made me anxious in like a weird way?
Which
like
one?
Perfect Crime Party. Like just like they make it so clear that the pressure of trying to come up with like new crimes, quote unquote,
right,
like every week was like so stressful. I was like, oh my God, like if I had a weekly series where every week I had to think of new like jokes or new like, crimes, and like that was the lifeblood of my series. Like if I had one bad week where I couldn't think of something funny or something creative or something clever, boom, I'm out. I'm cut.
You've never read Detective Conan, right?
No.
So Perfect Crime Party is almost like a child-like version spin-off of Detective Conan. Detective Conan is about a detective who gets transformed into a little kid, and he has to solve mysteries. And there is a long-running plot as well, but you only get a little bit of detail about the long-running plot every 50 chapters or so. And I read 800 chapters of this manga, and it did not even get to 50% of the plot. I think it's still...
Is it ongoing?
It's still ongoing. I think there's over like 1,200 chapters right now. So that's sort of like what PCP was. So when I saw that, I was like angry. I was like, fuck you, PCP. I know what you are. Fucking giving me a stupid mystery crime that isn't going to lead anywhere after 3 chapters.
So the frustration was there for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was very nostalgic, I guess. I had this realization while reading this series that I don't think I would like the main duo at all. Like, I don't think I'd like any of the series they create.
No, I agree. Like, everything from the side seemed more fun or more interesting or more passion-filled. But there's just seemed so cut and dry.
Akagi, the writer, is it Akagi? He writes like these Hunter x Hunter novel-esque books.
No, it's Takagi.
Takagi, excuse me.
It's Akito Takagi.
Akito Takagi, that's where I'm getting the A from. Takagi writes like fucking essays for all of his manga. So they wrote a total of 14 different series. And I'm like, man, I think I'd read some of these, but I don't think I'd enjoy them. Like, I'd be like, come on, next page.
I mean, a lot of them were one-shots, but even their one-shots, like, were once again, like, we're 15 and this is so deep.
Yeah, they're just like edgy. They're like,
yeah,
all that matters in the world is money, intelligence, and good looks. It's like interesting concepts, but it's like, I don't want to read this bullshit.
No, especially because like that one in particular, they wrote when they were like 16.
It's so funny. Oh, you know what? What the hell is his name? The one who's like Oda?
The one that did Crow? Crow
Yes.
is like the overarching. Nizuma,
yeah, Eiji Nizuma. I think he would be fun to read. Crow and Zombie Gun. Like, I feel like that's like typical shonen bullshit, but like it'd be super fun and bombastic, and he's just super cool.
Yeah, no, it seemed like that was their like battle shonen that was supposed to be. I mean, here's what I always thought was weird while reading Bakuman is that like Crow is number 1, these two are fighting for number 2 and number 3. Where's One Piece and Naruto in these rankings? Like,
but they
are
reference
they
One
canceled?
Piece. They
And that's what I'm saying. Like, they acknowledge that One Piece and Naruto, like, and these series exist, but, like, are they canceled? Are they done in this universe? Because if not, there's no reason they should never be in the top 3 in the rankings.
but like, what can they do? They can't like actually face off against, create an alternate reality where like Oda Sensei, we're actually better than you.
Yeah, but, like, you're really going to say, like, during Enies Lobby that, you know, Crow was number 1 every week?
I think they should have put a calendar in there and just made it like 2035 or something. I mean, One Piece would probably still be going, but besides the point.
Also a good point. There's so many things about Bakuman that, like, where I shouldn't be sitting here taking it so seriously and thinking about it, but I am. Like,
dude, we're digging deep.
I should be like, these rankings don't make any sense.
And oh my god, I don't know, man. It was a beautiful series. It made me laugh. It made me just like hold my head in ridiculousness.
It's just fun. It's fun and educational. And I think that's why I retained so much about the information of like how Jump works, is because they also made it like fun. They made learning about that process fun and enjoyable. Like, if you were to just read this in a magazine interview, I think, you know, I wouldn't remember it. But, like, you're part of the process.
You're along the journey with them, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, at one point, they get canceled, and then their editor's like, why don't you try an adventure manga? And they create a one-shot. And they're like, why don't you try a comedy manga? And they go through, like, 10 different one-shots. And they're like, oh, we're just teaching you skills. Now you have to write your best manga. And it's cool to follow. Oh, my God.
How much did you hate when they got the really shitty editor?
Oh, that fucking fat bastard.
He sucked.
And he just didn't know shit. But I feel bad for him too, because he's just incompetent, but he's not a bad guy.
Yeah, but like at the same time, it seemed like he wanted them to follow what he said because he's their editor and they have to listen to him.
I wonder if that's like a dig at an actual person that they might have worked
with. I'd imagine. It had to have been built off some experience.
Yeah, that guy sucked. And oh my God, the Tanto arc fucking blew.
Which one?
Tanto's the comedy manga with the guy who has a hair that looks like a butt.
Oh, right.
And then Akagi or Takagi was just dying because he didn't actually know how to write jokes.
That's it too. Where he was just like, I can't do this.
His body was just like failing him. But I think that arc, even though it sucked, it was also made Hattori and the future arcs that much better, because you're like, oh, finally we're back in a good place again.
Yeah, it's not even that the arc sucked, it's that like you felt that like anguish.
Yeah.
Like as you were reading it, which shows how well written it was, that you're like really like along that ride and thinking like, man, this sucks. They shouldn't have to do this.
Yeah, like why aren't they with
why do they have to
Hattori?
write this junk?
Like what the hell?
And I think that's a mark of great writing, is that you're like gripped into it and like you're angry for them.
Yeah, you're rooting for them, and you feel for this 2D fictional character that doesn't even exist, and you just want them to succeed.
So they can get their anime, and he can finally have his first kiss at the age of 30.
I think we touched on most topics. Is there anything you want to throw out there? I have one more topic I'd cover.
I mean, the thing I want to end with is the ending. So if you have something before that, I'll let you go ahead. Okay,
I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the comedy, and it's genuinely like laugh out loud, especially anything around Hiromaru. Hiromaru, we have not talked enough about, and I think we need to give him some justice.
Yes.
Hiromaru is this like 26-year-old salaryman, and he's like a hypochondriac, and he's super lazy, and he's just like, oh man, like I can make money being a mangaka, like I'm going to quit my corporate job. He joins Shonen Jump, realizes that being a mangaka is harder than being a like corporate banker, and he's just constantly trying to escape and hide from his editor, who's like
who just manipulates the ever-loving shit out of him.
He'll be at the main duo's door. He'll be like, "Hey guys, can I come in?" They're like, "Okay, Hiromaru, like haven't seen you in like months, but sure, come on in." And like, what are you doing? He's like, "Just don't tell my editor that I'm here. Did he call you?" And he's like, "I think," and then his editor will find him, and he'll be like, "Oh, I think my spleen's gonna explode. Oh, I think I broke my leg." Like he'll just make up any excuse to not do any work.
always trying to get into the hospital just to be away from them.
And then the last like 2 arcs are just so good. With him specifically, like
Yes.
he dresses up as Bruce Lee and fights Nakai.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
I just remember like literally like crying from
And
laughter.
he's so lanky and like unathletic and pathetic.
And you're like, oh shit, like he's about to like prove his manliness, and Nakai just slaps him once and he goes flying.
Exactly. The way they draw him getting wrecked and just making him look like a noodle is so funny.
Oh, he's brilliant.
And the otters.
And then his series Otters 11 ends, and he writes another series about they're like write a romance manga, and he writes a romance manga about otters.
And he's just constantly trying to get canceled, and it never happens.
What a great relationship between him and his editor.
It really is wonderful.
Robert, why don't you walk us in to the ending here?
This was I say it often, but manga often have terrible endings.
It's true.
And this one in particular was the last page happened, and then I was like, okay, so next chapter, it's over. What? How is this over? Are you kidding me? This is the ending?
It was like it fulfilled everything that they said they were going to do, but it felt so like there was like a hole missing in my heart. Like where's like the tension?
It was so abrupt.
Yeah.
What is he? He buys her house, then her childhood home, right? Or they meet at her childhood home. Or does he buy it?
I don't think he buys her. I think her mom's still living there. I think he learns how to drive a red Corvette or something because that's what his uncle was going to drive his future wife. So he rolls
which was her mother.
Which is her mother, who looks exactly like her.
Yes.
Female character designs, guys. So he rolls up to her place in a tuxedo, and then they get married.
Then they kiss, and then the last page is a panel of them not even touching, because one is on one side of a fence, the other's on the other side, and it's her saying, now we can always be together, and then it ends.
Are you looking at it right now?
I am. I just wanted the wedding.
Yeah, it felt very like alone after you've built up 200 chapters of like this community and like the celebration.
The problem is, from the very start, it's leading to this moment. Like, for them to actually be together. So you deserve a little bit more than just a panel of them kissing and then saying, we're going to be together forever now. We deserve a little bit more.
In fact, leading up to that as well, like, if it didn't feel rushed, but it didn't feel satisfying. Like, their manga to be the best manga ever, and they create like a 50-chapter manga called Reversi, and I was like, it was cool character design, but I didn't really feel invested in the series at all. And then
I didn't feel like it earned number one. I agree with you.
Yeah, it was like really cool looking, but like very little about you know like the first page and the last page, and like, oh yeah, you're number one now. And then they're like, but Nazuma's still beating you on sales figures. And then it's like 2 chapters later, hey guys, volume 3 came in and you're beating Nazuma in sales figures now. So now you're number one. Like, cool.
Yeah, I think I was always kind of expecting them to come up with some like ridiculous sales strategy to sell the manga volumes. Like I always figured they'd get creative in some different way, not just like, oh, looks like you finally did it. Your manga's outselling it.
It was kind of like out of their control at that point, right?
Yeah,
and you sort of want them to like, I don't know, run around in costumes or like do something ridiculous.
Yeah, I kind of expected something like that.
Like game the system, because that's what they've been doing the entire time.
Exactly, yeah. And that's a very, very, very small complaint. Overall,
yeah, even the ending, it wasn't bad, but it was just like, I don't know, it's something a little tiny bit's missing.
I think an ending where you want more is always better than an ending where you're like, thank God this is finally over.
Just like put this animal down, like
exactly.
Ninja War arc, please stop.
I was literally just about to say Naruto, where I just wanted this to end.
Naruto,
Bakuman,
Bleach.
I was like, damn, I want a little bit more.
Yeah, it is absolutely a complete series from start to end,
yeah.
No filler, and it's amazing. I was gonna say I have nothing bad to say about it, but I clearly do have a lot of bad things to say about it.
But the bad things we have to say about it aren't actually bad; they're just funny.
No, they're not. I don't even know if I'd call them critiques. I love those aspects of how shitty they are.
Yeah. it works within the confines of Bakuman.
Yeah. There is one secret last thing I want to tell you about. Did you know that Otter's 11 has a manga, a novel, and an action figure?
There's an action figure?
There's an action figure of the otter. There's one where he's holding a coat over his shoulder, and there's one where he has rock hands.
If a month from now, when my birthday comes along, that I do not have an Otter number 11 action figure, I'll consider this YouTube channel dead.
We'll see. We'll see about that. I've set up expectations too high already.
It's over. I need it. This is on you.
Robert, we are at the final portion. We haven't done this in a while, but we were at the ranking of Bakuman. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
You can go first.
I will give this a solid A. I think it doesn't reach... It's weird, because in some aspects, it hits me in that personal level. Like, it inspired me. I remember there's this one line from the editor-in-chief, Sasaki, where he's just like, manga just needs to be interesting. And that really simple line has always stuck with me, and that's kind of how I interpret media in a way now. Like, if I watch something, I'm like, oh, it checks all these boxes, but I was like, did I like it? Was it interesting? And I was like, no, like, then it's not good. It's simple as that. And that's always stuck with me. And in that way, it's kind of inspired me. And also just like this whole process, learning about it. But in another way, there's just some parts that just are not good enough for it to go into like S rank for me. So I think I think everyone who loves manga should read this manga. And it's somewhere in my top 10, top 15 probably of all time.
I 100% agree with you. I was going to go A as well. And just like you, there's no specific thing that keeps it from S, but I just like know it isn't S.
It's like a gut feeling, you know? Like when someone tells me like Slam Dunk or Eye Shield, I'm like, oh yeah, like it hits that nerve. But this is like, no, really great series, but not there yet.
Absolutely fantastic series. Would recommend it to everyone. It's an A. A is great. I mean, S is just reserved for probably my top 5 series. Yeah. And I'd say this is definitely a top 10 manga of mine.
If I had to look over mine, it's definitely up there. And especially if you just condense it down to like, you're comparing just this tight 200 chapter series compared to like 700 chapters of Naruto, a third of which is bloat. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right, yeah.
Like then if you're looking at it as a holistic picture, then it might be in the top 10.
Yeah. So, A. Bakuman from Justin and I both agree. It gets an A.
Without a doubt. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, if you want, you can send us an email at sclasspodcast@gmail.com or find us on social media at sclass_YT. Rob, what's your socials?
At sclassrob on Twitter. And we don't do email because email is stupid and doesn't exist anymore.
No, send us emails. I like emails. And we will read them out if you send us something during our monthly emails where we catch up on all the things that we're reading. But as always, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.